Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me again for another live Q&A session here on my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name's Angela. I'm a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator. I'm getting through the intro really fast. Welcome if you're new here. If you're not new here, then you know every week we have a new poll. And today's poll is, what do you think is the most important factor in a successful audiobook? And before you answer that poll question, I want you to ponder. I want you to think about your last, no, how about your favorite? What was it about your favorite audiobook that you loved most? What made it great in your eyes? Was it the story? Was it the narrator? Was it the characters? Was it the production quality? Or was it something else? What was it about your favorite audiobook that made it great for you? What was it? What was that factor? I mean, set aside it was my favorite author or it was my favorite narrator. Set aside that fact. What was it that made it great for you? And then answer the poll. What do you think, again, the poll, what do you think is the most important factor in a successful audiobook? Now, I know we're going to have lots of different opinions on this topic. And of course, as always, I'm going to share with you what I think as an audiobook narrator. And I'm close to about 300 audiobooks produced at this point. How long have I been doing this? Almost, wow, 8 years? Just about 8 years. So I want to know what you guys think. So far, we got a lot of votes coming in. Thank you guys. All right, so 46% of you said great narration. 35% of you said strong story or it's written well, right? 8% of you said audio quality. 12% of you said marketing and reviews. Okay, I know a lot of you are going to say it's all of the above, which you're not wrong. You're not wrong. It is all of the above, I think. But it could be a fantastic story, but there's something about the narrator that just doesn't mesh well with you. Or it could be a fantastic narrator, but the story is, and maybe not even the story, it's just not written well. Maybe it's the same point repeated over and over and over. And the narrator did a fantastic job of making the same point sound interesting every time they brought it up. And if you know, you know. Or maybe it was a fantastic narrator and a fantastic story, or written well if it was nonfiction. And there was something about the audio quality that was just off-putting. Or maybe it had fantastic audio quality. It was written really well and it was a fantastic narrator, but no one even knew it was there because no one ever marketed it. So it could be all of the above, right? But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Twitch, we're on YouTube. What was it about your favorite audiobook that made it great for you? Put it in the comments. I want to know. Because I think this is something we can really get deep into. Because if you think about it, I mean, because a lot of people are going to say great narration or a great voice even. But with as fantastic as, let's just say, Morgan Freeman is he a right fit for every book? Some would argue, yes, he is. And some would say, no, probably not. Not every book. Right? Not every single book. But what do you guys think? All right. So we're going to look at this from not just an audiobook narrator producer point of view. We're going to look at this from an author's point of view. And we're also going to look at it from the listener point of view. because all of those elements, I think, contribute to making it a successful audiobook, right? Now, I know most of you watching are audiobook narrators, and you're going to be a little bit biased, and you're probably going to sway more towards audio quality or a great narration, and that's fine. That's your perspective, right? But what about the other two? The author's perspective, the listener's perspective. What is it about a great audiobook that makes it great? Right? I want to know. Is there anybody on TikTok yet with an opinion? Not yet. All right. So let's get over to the comments really quick, because I really want this to be a discussion, right? Because we can have a fantastic narration as an audiobook narrator, but the copy just doesn't resonate with the narrator, right? Maybe it's something they've never experienced before. Let's just say it's nonfiction, and we're talking about, I don't know, raising a teenager. And maybe it's a teenager narrating the nonfiction book about raising a teenager. Now, from a listener point of view, is it really going to be a credible delivery of this information coming from a teenager? The narrator's probably not a right fit. They're probably fantastic as a narrator. But are you really going to take, and of course, no offense at all, but I'm just saying, if you analyze this from a listener point of view, are you going to take raising a teenager from a teenager? Is it going to land the way that you want it to land? Is it going to come from a place of knowledge and experience? Probably not. Right? Again, let's just go back to the Morgan Freeman example. Is he going to be a great fit for maybe something documentary style nonfiction? Probably. Right? Most, because he's fantastic at everything. But is he going to be the right fit coming from a female point of view in a romantic love story? Or maybe even arguably some cozy mysteries? Probably not. Right? All right. So let me see. I think I got too far into the weeds on what makes it a great audiobook, but let's also talk about from the author's point of view. Now, we talked last week about communicating with the author, being reliable, a source of information, responding well or quickly, promptly, giving updates on how the audiobook is going, making sure that you're asking those questions, you're invested. Those are all good things too. My train was derailed, if you guys couldn't tell. Where was I going with the author thing? Oh my gosh, I just totally drew a blank. I think you guys know where I'm coming from this, right? I'm trying to get to my notes here. Okay. Here, let's just get over to the comments because I'm getting ahead of myself. I think that's my problem. I asked you guys a question. So, what makes an audiobook great from your perspective? Actually, I saw Caesar in the chat. Caesar, are you camera ready? And you want to hop on with me and we could talk about this? Let's open the door because it's a little bit warm in here. Caesar. If you are, here, this is what I'm going to do, Caesar. Everybody loves Caesar. Give me somebody to talk to about this. You have multiple opinions. All right, Caesar, I'm going to put an invite into Discord for you if you want to come on. But, okay, 2 minutes, cool. Cool. Let's get over to the comments because I really wanted this to be more of a discussion, more than me just being a talking head today. Because there's going to be multiple perspectives on this, right? Because we as audiobook narrators, as I said before, sorry, I didn't mean to punch my microphone for you guys on TikTok. We're going to be a little bit biased. We're going to be a little bit more concerned about the narration part, probably the writing because we have to narrate it, and having that flow in the narration is everything. But then also audio quality is going to be something that we're going to be focused on, of course. But from an author's point of view, if we have any authors on TikTok, Instagram, okay, I'm going to get to all the comments. If we have any authors here or just audiobook lovers in general, what is it that you think? Professor Tracy on TikTok says, a good story will not have a lot of big words in it. You mean from a narrator point of view? I don't mind the big words so much. It's not really, for me, it's not about the big words. All right, so on Instagram, Kiki says, I would say voice or narration, and the author providing information. Yeah, having good communication with the author is everything in making a good audiobook even better. Because the more information you have as the narrator, the better you're going to be able to deliver what the author's vision is, right? So if we think about, let's just say science fiction, because or fantasy, because I've been in this situation a couple of times where it's written really well. It's a great story, but there are made up places and words, right? Or maybe even names of people that you would think it was pretty obvious how it was pronounced, and you were confident in how you thought it should be pronounced, but it was pronounced in a completely different way. Communication with the author, right? So if you have any kind of inkling of doubt or you have a question about anything, just always refer to the author. Ask the author questions. It's okay to. It doesn't make you any less professional. It makes you more professional. It means you're invested. You want to make this a good quality production. So ask those questions, especially if it's sci-fi, fantasy. Ask about a pronunciation guide, either phonetic spelling or have the author even record themselves saying the words. So that way you're sure that you're pronouncing them correctly, right? If it's a nonfiction and there's a lot of technical jargon in it, a lot of terminology that you're unfamiliar with, maybe even medical terminology, if I would definitely, let me just put this out here now. Don't rely on Google for pronunciation tips. Do not rely on Google for pronunciation tips. I personally use Merriam-Webster, the online dictionary. It'll give you a phonetic spelling, and it'll also give you a lot of times a recorded voice, but sometimes that recorded voice is not always completely accurate. And then also for medical specifically, if the voice that's on Merriam-Webster sounds like it could be AI, because I'm hearing a lot more of that now, then that might not be right either. So you might want to go to the author again and make sure that you're getting the correct pronunciation of things. And we could get into a whole separate conversation about how AI could either improve or just destruct your audiobook. Right? All right, let's get over to the comments really quick while Caesar gets his hair ready. Caesar said, it's a coin toss between great narration and great story. I chose great story or written well because it affects everything else downstream. Great story can lead to great narration, etc. Well, I completely agree with that. That is 100% true. But even if it's a great story and it's written well and the narration is great, the if the narrator doesn't connect or doesn't understand what they're saying, it will come across that way. It'll come across as they're disconnected or it's forced or it's overacted even, right? So there's a lot of elements to making a great audiobook. And then, even if the narrator connects well with it, the audio quality is great, it's written really well, but it's not marketed. No one knows it's there. It's the same thing where we create a website and we just assume everybody is going to come knocking down the door. Nobody knows it's there. It's lost among the sea of millions of others. So all of these elements need to be in play. I think for me, I don't know if I have like a favorite audiobook, but the one that I always think of as leaving like a lasting impact on me was a Stephen King book narrated by Michael C. Hall, the guy that plays Dexter. Was it Michael C. Hall? I think it's Michael C. Hall. I might have had him confused with somebody else, but I think it's Michael C. Hall. But being Stephen King is one of my favorite authors. So that was how I found it. So the marketing didn't really come into play because I wanted to listen to a Stephen King book. But it was written really well because it was Stephen King. But then Michael C. Hall did such a great job, a great performance on that. That I think that for me, I think I was immersed into the story. Right? So even if there were retakes left in, which I think there was, didn't faze me. I caught it because I'm an audiobook narrator. But I was just sucked right into the story. So I think that is really one of the larger elements to having a great audiobook is that the narrator, regardless of what it is that you have to narrate, the narrator is connected, has a firm understanding of what it is they're narrating it, right? The W's, as we talk about all the time. As the narrator, who are you narrating to? Who are you as the narrator? And why are you narrating to them? Right? If it's a dramatic book, if it's fiction, and we're talking about if it's a tense scene, is the narrator upbeat and happy in it? No. If it's a tense scene, they're probably not. Right? So the narrator is a large part, I think, of making an audiobook great. It's not so much the audio quality. I think that is probably the least concern, sadly, but it is. I think that is the least concern in the options given. And you guys, it looks like you guys agree with me. Because right now we're sitting at 38 votes and 42% of you, large majority, said great narration is what makes an audiobook great. 37% of you said, slow down, strong story or written well. And then 13% of you said marketing and reviews. So I think I agree with you. The top two pillars there, great narration, strong story, written well. So I think for the authors that watch, because we can, of course, we can get into AI. I don't think there's any way to avoid talking about AI in this conversation at all. AI voices, no, not for audiobooks. There's, my opinion, AI is here. AI is here to stay. It's got a place as tools for certain things. AI voice could be used for text-to-speech, things like that. But things that require projects that require the element of human emotion, the soul's understanding of the nuances of life is what requires a human voice. And audiobooks are definitely within that range, right? So if you're an author, I think considering using AI to create your book or to write your book, I can tell you as a narrator, we can tell right away if it's written by AI. Because as I mentioned before, many times where I didn't realize it was an AI book that I was getting myself into narrating, that it was just that, like I said before, it's the same point. It's whatever prompt you gave AI, and it's just repeated over and over, just configured different ways. And I think the listener will eventually pick up on that as well. So AI, I think, doesn't belong in audiobooks, or either the writing or the narration of it, if you would like it to be successful. There was actually a social media post that I saw recently that was a statistic. I don't know if I'm assuming it's correct, but I haven't checked it. I forget what the date was, but I want to say it was 2024, 2025, that only 16% of audiobooks actually sold that were AI, or there was only 16% of Audible sales were AI narrated books. Something like that. And most of them were returned or something. I forget what the statistic was. But if any of you have seen it, please let me know what that statistic was. All right, let's keep going. Let me look over here really quick. Let's see. See if there's any questions. And thank you for all the likes on TikTok, you guys. I appreciate it. If you have questions, comments, I mean, yes, I'm talking about Dexter, Finley. Yes, absolutely. Yes, Dexter. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Over on TikTok and Instagram. All right. Let's see. Caesar then continues, in fact, a well-written book can encourage narrators to improve their audio quality and want to deliver their best work. Bad books, well, you knock it out with a little care and call it a code blue DNR. Paul says, I think the most important factors ought to be quality of story or writing and quality of performance. I think even if, and I don't want to discourage new authors. I think there's a place for everyone's voice out there. If you have a story, if you have an idea, write it down. Write your book. Write your book. Do your thing. But please don't rely on AI to write it all for you. Insert your own perspectives, your own experience, your own creative brilliance into the story. Because even not the, and believe me, I've seen just about everything out there in my tenure in audiobook publishing, production and publishing. I have narrated some okay written books, right? But given it my all, because I understood where the author was coming from. I connected with the copy. So, and I'm not going to say that the audiobook, was, prize winning or award winning, but if you guys know me at all, I am a big cheerleader for the underdog. I want people who have that idea, to have that goal, to have that dream, to do the damn thing, right? Get out there and do the thing. I support indie authors. I support brand new authors. Give me your debut novel, and let me make it a reality for you. I love that. That is what I love doing. So in doing that, even if your first book isn't the best thing you've ever written, I will do my best to make it sound fantastic, as fantastic as I can make it sound. I promise you I'm a voice actor. I can speak. But that is where I come from. So it's not always the quality of the story or the writing, because I don't want to dissuade new authors. I want you to get out there and write that book. But a good narrator can bring that story to life. Just don't use AI to write it. You write it. Then Paul continues, what I think actually does affect success is the authors and narrators following, marketing. I don't think all audio quality matters. It doesn't as much as we think it does. I think in terms of audio quality, it just needs to meet ACX's standards and to not have, or audiobook formatting standards for that part. And maybe not have like a TV on in the background or a dog barking in the background, or you know what I mean? Something that could draw the listener's ear away from the story, essentially. But we shouldn't be so hung up on audio quality. Do you guys agree with that or no? Give me your thoughts. If you're over on TikTok, just give me your thoughts. Instagram, wherever you are, give me your thoughts. It's a group conversation. David brought the donuts. Thank you, David. Kat's here. Good morning. Paul Silver says, ooh, another of the all of the above situation. Yes, tricky. I say marketing and reviews. I think so too. I think marketing is just as important as all of the other elements. Because again, if you have a fantastic story, if you have a fantastic narration, you have to market it. You have to get it out there in front of the eyeballs, right? To make those sales. I mean, yes, if it's going to be a great story, great narration, it could get organic traffic because of word of mouth and other people marketing it for you, but that's still marketing, right? So it is kind of an all of the above thing, but I think most importantly, great narration, strong story. Yep. Bear says, that's a hard one, Angela, because really, if you don't have all of those, then the book will have a hard time making the book successful. Yeah. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Good morning, beautiful people. Yes. Review Exchange Group says, the last 3 books I've narrated, I've thoroughly enjoyed and related to the message, the story, on royalty share, per finished hour, much less concerned about the story. I take my good books into public speaking. I like that. So for if it's royalty share, you're more concerned about the story? Is that what you're saying? Kat says, several of the audiobooks that I have are, several of the audiobooks that I have are books that I read and reread. I got them because of the story. It starts with a great story. Well said, Kat. AJ Poppy says, tough question, because there are certain people I could listen to a dictionary reading, but I've also listened to incredible books with bad narrating. Same. And then we also have to take into account that everybody's got their own preferences, right? Because even if you're a fantastic narrator, you can do fantastic characters. Some people just pick up on things. And can you listen to that for 8 hours, an 8-hour stretch? Is there something about the narrator that you pick up on in chapter 2 that your brain just goes, I can't do it. Everybody has their own preferences, I've listened to fantastic information, let's just say it was written really well. But the narrator was so flat and monotone and disconnected sounding that I couldn't listen to it. Now I'm going to have to revert to the actual print copy of the book, which is fine because I'm a book nerd. I have lots of books in my collection. But it could go either way. Homebound Audio says, it all obviously matters, but I truly think that a narrator who finds a way to tell the story well can make up for some other of the shortcomings. I think so too. Tiger Lily says, I am also tied between great story and narration. A tough story makes it super challenging to sound engaging. And that is a struggle for the narrator, right? That is a struggle for the narrator. But can the narrator overcome the lack of perfect writing, for the lack of maybe even saying, like I said before, saying that same point over, regurgitated over and over again, just in different ways. Can they still take that word salad, and make it into something delicious? So that's a challenge for the narrator. But from the listener's perspective, are they going to be able to listen to that? Maybe. Maybe because the narrator does so well with the content that they have that it is listenable. Because I've purchased this audiobook because I wanted this information. Let's just say it's nonfiction. I wanted this information. I wanted to learn more about something. But maybe it is written by AI and it just sounds like, again, the same content over and over and over again. But the narrator made it so engaging and entertaining, maybe even, that I was able to listen to the whole thing. Or maybe not. Right? But that is the challenge for the narrator, for sure. But let's think about the author's perspective and the listener's perspective. Because ultimately, even the best narrator on earth, if the author isn't happy with the narrator because they don't communicate well or whatever the issue is, that audiobook ain't getting made. Or the listener ain't going to listen to it because it's not written well. Or maybe it's not even marketed, so no one even knows that it's there. All of these different elements take a hang on a second, I'm distracted by Caesar. Oh no, none of your browsers will recognize your webcam after your recent update. Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. Let's see. Paul says, I read the question differently of what makes it successful, not necessarily to me. So I said marketing and reviewer because it could be amazing, but if no one knows about it, it's not a success. Mm-hmm. Caesar I know, Jens. Caesar distracting? Never. Never. I love the AI summaries on TikTok. Debating the importance of story versus narration in audiobooks. Share your thoughts. I mean, it's not wrong. See, AI can be helpful. It's just, it has its place. Just not always where we want it to be. Let's see. Cardassian novel of the unending sacrifice. I haven't read that one. I don't even know about that one. Paul says, personally to me, I enjoy a good storyteller that can keep me engaged. Same. And I think that's what Michael C. Hall did. I mean, not only was it a great story, it was Pet Sematary. I mean, come on. And then Michael C. Hall did a great job with all the characters and the accents and just keeping it so engaging. Sage. Hi, Sage. Sage says, good afternoon, Angela and everyone. I chose a good quality audio. When I listen to an audiobook, if the audio is off, too much mouth noise, the voice is not voicing, or too much background noise, or especially if the music is too loud, then I'm not going to finish the audiobook. Yep. And I think that comes down to preference too. But I'm with you with the music being too loud. Yeah. It's a delicate balance when you're adding sound effects and music. I think music and sound effects can definitely enhance the story or enhance the audiobook. But if it's too loud or there's too much or it's layered weird, it's not gonna land the way that you anticipate it to, or anticipate that it does. AJ Poppy says, I do think good writing is the top for me personally. Obi-Wan says, I would think it's important if you read the book first. It's not the narration is the catch that keeps you listening. If not the narration is the catch that keeps you listening. Unless there's a talented handful of individuals that can cold read anything. I mean, we've been talking about Ray Porter recently. You know, Ray Porter can take a cold read of anything and make it magical. I mean, Project Hail Mary is one of them. But not everybody can do that. And I think especially as a newer narrator, it's better The end result will be better if you read the book first. If you take the time to, because let me just back up and say, because as a new narrator, you're still learning all the nuances of what is required of you. And as a narrator, the listener must find you engaging. The listener can tell if you're disconnected, if you're just reading the words, right? If you're just relaying information. But it's so much more engaging and immersive, and it will definitely take your mind away from the audio quality and maybe even perhaps the copy itself, or what the information is, if the narrator can take that information and make it sound like this is the greatest thing on earth. Which is hard for some narrators, especially in the beginning. That is where the acting comes in voice acting, right? You literally need to put the author's shoes on if it's nonfiction, because we're talking about nonfiction. I think in my head, nonfiction, not all of it can sound super engaging. Let's just say, like, if we're talking about taxes and retirement planning, that's not super exciting, but it's necessary information. So if you can keep it engaging and sound like you are the author, I am the authority on this topic, and I am here to help you. I understand where you, the listener, are coming from, and I can deliver this information in a way that is interesting. Again, engaging, right? Not just monotone and flat. I think that makes all the difference. Review Exchange Group says Morgan Freeman can do any book, but not be the best candidate for it. Who am I kidding? I mean, I agree. Morgan Freeman. I love me some Morgan Freeman. Another voice actor that's a celebrity that I love, and I think she was, well, probably still is, my role model, was Sigourney Weaver. She's one of my favorite voice actors. And Sigourney Weaver can probably do most anything too. Oops. I think I accidentally sent an invitation to somebody. Sorry about that, whoever that was. Oh my God. Okay. We have too many comments going on here. I'm just going to have to narrow it down to like one or two. All right. Tammy says, from consumer point of view, the cover needs to catch my eye. Then I look at the story. Interesting. And that is definitely a factor too. Because when we're shopping on Amazon or anywhere else, it's the same thing. Does the image catch your eye? But then we also have to think about those that are sight impaired, that can't see the cover, right? They have to rely on the sample. So they're going to rely on the narration style. They're going to probably rely on the marketing for it. They're going to rely on maybe even the audio quality. Maybe they'll pick up on the audio quality more than anything else. We're going to get multiple perspectives on this, I think. Hello, Space Angel. Joy. Hey, Joy. She is the embodiment of joy, let me tell you. Good afternoon, everyone from Michigan. I have to say narration because a nicely written story plus great narration is what pulls me into the audiobook. Then I'll buy it. Yeah, I think those are the major factors. Tiger Lily says, this is specific to fiction, but for me, I like great vocal dynamics. If the narration is too monotone or doesn't bring out each character's personality, my mind will easily drift. Great point. And I think that for me, if it's a monotone narration, and sometimes it's just that, it could be anything about the narrator's voice that's just off-putting to me. Obviously, it wasn't to the author because the author chose them to narrate the book. But there's going to be so many different points of view and perspectives on this. Oh my God. Homebound Audio says, I just got asked to narrate a book on how to make dog food. Still waiting on the script. But I'm thinking what a great challenge to me and to try and make that interesting and engaging. You can. And the trick is, of course, again, to slip on the shoes of the author. The author has this information. I'm guessing this is something that they've done themselves, that they have had success with this. Maybe it's a nutritionist, a veterinary nutrition, I don't know, but somebody who hopefully has some kind of authority in making good dog food. So you would just have to approach the narration in that same way. This is something that I've experienced. This is something that I have learned and I've had great success with. And now I want to share that information with you, so you can make sure that you're feeding your fur babies the best food that you possibly can, right? I think we tend to overthink a lot. We overthink just about everything, right? Because you think, how to make dog food. Well, how do I make this interesting? You become the author. In nonfiction, you are basically the author. You are the authority on this topic. You are the one that is sharing your knowledge with the listener. Christian says, I wouldn't read a book about taking candy from a baby that was narrated by a baby. I mean, that might be interesting. I might, just because it would be interesting to see that point of view. Tammy says, from the narrator view, it is the story, then the cover. Must have a cover to catch the eye of the consumer. Sage says, I believe that every narrator has a specific niche their voice is perfect for. You just need to do the work to find that niche. And that is something that we've said a lot of times here on my channel. Your clients will tell you what you're best suited for, what kind of work you're best suited for. When I first started in voiceover and audiobooks, I was going more for fiction because that's what I was reading most myself. But as time went on and I've done more and more work and produced audiobooks and done all kinds of, anything you can think of voiceover related, I've probably done it. And most of that is long form nonfiction. So think e-learning, documentary. I've done a lot of video games, but just with basically this voice here. More or less just being the voice of the author or the source of the information, the teacher, right? The instructor. That's basically what I get hired for the most. So your clients will tell you what you're good at. Oh, and meditation. I do a lot of meditations. And I never would have guessed that. I never would have guessed that. Let's see. Hey, Jules. Sorry I'm late. My long arm was getting its yearly service. I brought bagels and Boston cream donuts. I love it. May says, I have suffered through some really poor narration and audio quality purely because the story was compelling. Interesting. Ben says, hey, Angela in chat. Hey, Ben. What's happening, Ben? All right, I just wanted to scroll really quick and see if there was any comments, questions on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, if you have questions or comments, that's what these are for. Jump in and say hi. Give us your feedback. What is your perspective? What makes an audiobook great for you? Kat says, I'm listening to my favorite books and seeing what I like and dislike about the narration and how to apply it to my own narration. If you're an audiobook narrator, you should also be listening to audiobooks. Paying attention to the timing, how they differentiate character voices, hearing the retakes left in, hearing the editing mistakes. Pick up on all of that stuff. Because I could tell you, almost every book, including Project Hail Mary, I heard a retake left in. That's no fault of Ray's, because I'm sure he did that in Audible Studios and someone else missed it. But my point in including that is that it happens and that it kind of takes the pressure off of you as the audiobook producer to be perfect, to be striving for that perfect, because you don't need to be. The most important thing is engaging the listener and keeping them hooked into listening to that audiobook. That is your job. Vina says, I have made decisions on whether to do a book while I'm doing the audition. There have been several. I've been like, nope, halfway through it. Yeah. It's tough because a lot of times when you're doing an audition, you're only given a snippet. So you're not getting the full context. You're not getting the writing style. You're not really getting how it was written. There have been many times where I've been in the middle of a book that was written by AI, but the audition sample, or maybe it was just an order placed on Fiverr and I didn't have the manuscript, and it wasn't until I was halfway through when I realized it was written by AI. And you just, at that point, you can either gracefully bow out or you can just suck it up, buttercup, and get it done, right? But it's difficult to make that decision midway through. AJ Poppy says, aspiring author here, when I do finally finish my book, I hope it will be well written and a good story. At which point I think a narrator who can nail the accents and drama will seal the deal. 100%. 100%. I think the narrator should be a good fit for your genre, like we were talking about before with Morgan Freeman and others. If the narrator, if their audition, and in their audition, if they can sound like they're connected to it, if they understand, given what they are given, to glean the information they need to give the performance, because again, most of the time for auditions, we're given just maybe a paragraph or just a snippet, so we don't have a full understanding of what is going on or what the characters' points of view are. So keep that in mind too, authors, when you're listening to auditions. If the narrator doesn't sound completely connected, or maybe they're just a little bit off with their emotion, it's probably because they only had this much to go off of. You know the whole story. You know all the background on the characters. You know everything. You know every aspect about this book and story. The narrator is given this much, and they're trying their best with what they have. But in those auditions, does the narrator seem to have maybe at least a close understanding of what is happening? And then are they overacting it? Are they underdoing it? Are they making outlandish character voices that would sound like, it'd probably kill them to try to sustain, And then a lot of times it's maybe just the voice, regardless of how they delivered it in the audition. Is it the voice that was maybe in your head as you were writing the prose, right? There's probably a lot of different factors that go through an author's head when choosing a narrator. Rebecca's here. Hey, Rebecca. Hi, Angela and all. I'm late, so chocolatey clear. Guess you're going to hear my stomach grumble in a minute. Chocolatey Clairs for everyone. I really think a great story and a well-written, well-edited book make for a better narration. Authors, good editing helps so much. It does. It does. And as narrators, we realize that audiobooks are an investment. We know that. We know that it is, and we're talking like per finished hour, if we're talking per finished hour books. And I have lots of videos here on my channel where I talk about what the different pay types are, if you're curious about what that is. But essentially, you're paying for the production up front. So then once the audiobook is uploaded into the distributor of your choice, then you collect all the royalties and all the sales. So it's basically a pay for production and a buyout, basically. And we know that that's an investment. We do. So if you can find a narrator that's a good fit for your genre, a good fit, seems to understand where you're coming from in the audition, and maybe can be communicative, responsive, maybe even flexible if you need them to be in terms. I mean, you got a winner right there, and I think that is the majority of us. Oh, cherry fritters. Thanks, Chris. I have a story 67 says, I think the narration has a lot to do with it. Timing, cadence can be smoothed, but it starts with the ability. Some don't seem to care what it is. I get told I could read a phone book. They don't care. Yeah. And it's a lot easier to deliver a good performance if you understand what it is that you're reading too, or at least where the author's coming from, right? Joy says big words. Well, with some genres, such as medical, business, technology, or real estate, I expect big words. Good point. Good point. Review Exchange Group says, Angela, how often do you run into bad writing? I once did a book that was so poorly edited and written that it was drudgery to get through, even though it was in a favorite genre, faith and family. I've been there. I've been there a couple of times. And when I do run into this situation where there's a lot of maybe misspelled words, a lot of errors, I mean, that are pretty obvious, I will stop and I will reach out to the author and ask if I was given the final draft, if I was given the final, like, print-ready copy of the manuscript. And there have been times when the author goes, oh my God, I gave you like the second version before it went to final editing or something like that. And then they sent me the final draft. There's been a couple of times where it was just operator error. The author just sent the wrong draft, not on purpose, but it's definitely a question worth asking if that's what you're finding. Now, for those of you wondering, well, how do I write that without coming off sounding, insulting? I don't want to inadvertently insult their writing capabilities. But in the chance that they did give you the wrong draft, you would have to re-record the whole thing or make all the corrections if they've swapped out paragraphs, and you know what I mean? So do both of you the favor and ask the question. Just say, hey, I'm noticing, grammatical errors or, misspelled words, or, maybe there's strike-throughs in it, or, something that's obvious. And just ask, hey, I just wanted to double check that you gave me the final draft, because I don't want to have to charge to re-record the whole thing if I do in fact have the wrong version, right? So you're doing both of you a favor. Now, if they say, no, this is the final draft, then you can then offer a proofreading service. You can go through, and you're not saying that you're like a professional book editor or anything like that. But if they want you just as another person to put eyes on it and to go through it and make some adjustments, you can do that. Offer your services. I mean, there's a good chance that if you're an audiobook narrator, then you're a book nerd and you probably have some literacy skills. Right? So offer to do that, but be sure that you're offering it as a service and that you're compensated for it. All right. Tanya, speaking of fantastic voices, I agree that you can have the best audiobook out there, but if no one knows about it, it might as well not exist. I Have a Story 67 says AI can be a tool for pictures if they actually match, but narration? No. I hate AI narration. Same. I do too. Same goes with YouTube videos. If I'm clicking on a YouTube video because I want to know more about the information or be told a story or something like that, there's a couple of YouTube channels that I listen to that tell scary stories, like stories about cryptids and things like that. They're either from Reddit or like their viewers will send in their own personal stories and then the channel owner will narrate them. I love those. But if I come across something that is narrated by an AI, and you can always tell when it's an AI, I don't care how good it is, you can always tell it's AI. I cannot listen to it because it's just, as I think Caesar said once, it's just, it lives somewhere out in the uncanny valley. There's just something off about it that is just icky feeling. Tiger Lily says, I found that YouTube is also auto-dubbing my videos in AI voices in other languages, and I don't know how I feel. The accessibility makes sense. Same. Same. I think I've turned all of that off just because it made me feel so oogie. Yeah, I've seen that option too, and I just go, And it's always telling me, you're missing out on, a larger audience, but I'm just like, yeah, but I don't want my voice replicated or even, maybe not, but like manipulated. And no, it's gross. Tiger Lily then says, when I hear AI English voices dubbing a foreign language video, it sounds so awful. And it doesn't match the tone of the video. Nope. Voiceover Lisa says, just had my third audiobook approved. Yay, it's a Christmas anthology. This is my second anthology, and I'm finding it is my favorite genre because of the diverse storytelling on the same subject. I love that. I love that. Yep, congratulations. I have a story says, to Tiger Lily, right? I turned the auto dubbing off on YouTube because of that. But YouTube has screwed over so many human narrators, it really doesn't matter to me anymore. Yeah, the YouTube tools are a little bit harsh on some people. Yeah, that's a whole other story. Tammy says, for new authors, I think AI can be a good first draft, but the author needs to go in and turn the story human and fix the issues. It should never be an AI-only book, and that's exactly what my point is. AI is a tool. It should not be the final output, right? And then in terms of voiceover, like I said before, it could be used in very helpful ways like audio description, text-to-speech, stuff like that to help, maybe like visually impaired, things like that. It should not be used for anything that requires the depth of human understanding. And in terms of writing, yes, I think if you want to just if you have no writing skill at all and you just vomit all of your ideas and information into an AI tool like Claude or ChatGPT, whatever you're using, and ask it to format it in a way that makes more sense, maybe make an outline, some way for you to intelligently compile this information that makes sense in a flow, great, you've got the bones. Now, but you need to go back in and make those adjustments, fill it out, make it human, input more of that human touch. It's a tool, but it never should be the final output. I agree, Tammy. Tiger Lily says, too, I have a story. Yeah, the setting is super buried, too. It is. It's hard to find. I'm not totally sure if it's actually turned off now. Oh, yep, I'm going to have to go make sure mine is off. Cherry fritters and extra coffee. Christian says, a lot of books are terrible, but marketing and reviews can bring people in. Yep. All of those elements matter, I think, for sure. But what makes it great? What makes a great audiobook? Joel says, yep, AI covers can be very frustrating too. They can be. They can be. Dwight says, hello from physical therapy. Oh, hi, Dwight. Get it done, bro. Professor Tracy says, I have a simple question. Is there a certain size on audiobook should be from beginning to end? No. Every audiobook is going to be different because the word counts are going to be different, right? Even if it's a nonfiction book and a fiction book that are the exact same size word count wise, the fiction book is probably going to have more dialogues that's going to be faster, slower, cadence difference, more intentional pauses for dramatic effect. I mean, the fiction very well could be a little bit longer just because of all of that. You know, every book is going to be a little bit different based on mainly the word count. Lex B says, as someone who is working very hard on perfecting my editing, I agree. Let's not get hung up on the audio quality. It's a factor. It's a factor, but I think to your point, audio quality to me is like it doesn't affect anything if the story is great. If I'm immersed in the story. If I'm hooked. If I'm hooked, I don't mind all of the other things that I might hear in the background. As long as it doesn't draw my focus away, then it's fine. Mary Lynn says, I chose audio quality because I love to listen to classics on LibriVox, but sometimes I just can't because the reader's audio quality is trash. Yeah, but you're not going to hear that everywhere. I mean, LibriVox is one thing because it's a platform where people volunteer to narrate audiobooks in the public domain. But there really aren't, they're not super stringent on their audio quality standards because it's all volunteer work, right? There's no money exchanged. But on platforms where you're paying for a book, in most cases, you're going to have better quality standards. Paul says, I didn't mean audio quality isn't important. Of course it is. I meant it doesn't have much effect on how successful a book is. Yes. Yes. Rights holders, I'm sorry, excuse me, royalty share. I only want to do stuff like per finished hour, I'm a mercenary. Have we been on for an hour? We have. TikTok's asking me to do the puzzle thing. Hold on. Boop. Let's see. Obi-Wan says, no, audio quality is important on the assumption the person who buys the book knows little about it or has an idea about it but is wrong. The narration keeps them listening. I agree. I agree. Let's see. Tiger Lily says, I have learned that audio quality does matter. Insofar as bringing out the truest tones of your voice. I thought I sounded okay on the Shure MV7 Plus, but when I heard myself on the Rode NT1, I was like, yeah. Rebecca says, maybe I'm saying the quiet part out loud, but I'm more excited to market the heck out of a well-written non-AI book. When I get looped into an AI or poorly written book, I market because I have to. Yep. Homebound Audio says, to your point on nonfiction, I have found myself listening to poor narration because I had to listen to that book. Feeds my passion to bring my best to every project I get lucky enough to book. It's not about luck, Ryan. It's about perseverance. It's about drive. It's about continuing instead of giving up. There's no luck. Jules says, as a narrator, you can create flow with bad text, but it's hard. Having good writing to start with helps to make the narration easier. Yes. And that's what I was saying earlier. Because not every book is going to be, a John Grisham. It's not every book you narrate is going to be so well written because a lot of people are, again, as I say, book publishing is so easy to do these days. You can do it all by yourself. So there's going to be a lot of people trying their hand at writing a book for the first time. And on the same side of the coin, you're going to have a lot of people AI creating books because, again, it is so easy to publish books. So if you get, and I think it really depends on who the author is and what they're trying to achieve with this book. If they're just trying to relay information but just have no skill in writing whatsoever, so they relied on AI to help them outline the book, but then didn't add any human element to it, they just left it as the final output, that can be a little bit difficult to get through. But as the narrator, understanding what is happening here, how it is written, why it was written, and what the purpose of the book is. Even you could, you could put your all into it if you're trying to help somebody out. And that is where the narrator skill is really going to shine through. If you're able to take that word salad and make it into something fantastic, or at least keep it engaging enough to get the author's point across, then that is definitely something. But I think for those books that were just, AI generated just to be AI generated just to like have an audiobook factory farm of like a passive income kind of a thing, those cash cow kinds of things. It's the same with YouTube channels, and that's exactly why YouTube got rid of a lot of those channels, because it was the same kind of thing. There was no passion or human element behind it. It's the same thing with those kinds of books. So it makes it difficult as a human to connect with that kind of thing when you're just part of the audiobook cash cow farm, right? So in that respect, it's really, really hard to keep it engaging. So, but yeah. Was that a tangent? That could be a tangent. I think that was a little bit of a tangent. Paul says, this is a random question. Some audiobooks I've heard have music in the opening credits. Does that make an audiobook seem more professional? Why is it added? Author's preference. Author's preference. I don't think it makes an audiobook more professional. I think it's just ambiance. Stephen King is a great example of that. Sometimes his audiobooks have music, like in the interludes, like from chapter to chapter, and sometimes in the beginning, just because he wanted it there. It doesn't make it more professional. It's just sometimes I think the music is off-putting. If it's not like a full cast dramatized book, that's not what I'm talking about. For the times where I've listened to an audiobook of one of Stephen King's books, and it had music in it, I was like, I was almost eye roll. I was like, I don't need that. I just want to hear the story. But to other people, they really enjoy it. I mean, it just all comes down to preference. But I don't think it makes you sound more professional. I think it just comes down to preference. Let's see. Looking for questions. Tiltability says, I like when the narrators are able to sound passionate about the topic. That's what keeps me engaged. I'm a nonfiction reader narrator. Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. As the voice actor, sometimes you need to act like it's the best thing on the planet, right? That you wrote the words, and to keep it engaging, to keep people listening. And that's not always easy, right? Cherry fritters. Yeah. Lex says, question. If you're narrating and you come across a mistake in the writing, do you read it as it is or do you correct it? You read what is there. Please resist the urge as a narrator to correct on the fly. Read what is there. If it's something that it just does not belong, that it would just is a blatant error or mistake, let the author know. Let the author know where you found it and what it was. Because again, it could be that you weren't given the final draft, or it could be something that they need to fix now in their print copy, in their ebook, right? Something that was missed by maybe several people. But don't correct it and say nothing. Read what is there. A lot of times, even if it's an established author, they write a specific way for a specific reason. There could be method in that madness that you think is a mistake, but it was intentional for some reason unbeknownst to us until, down the road. So always read what is there. Do not add words. Do not omit words. Do not change words. Read what is there. But if it's blatant, then maybe you should ask the author. But if you read through the book, you might know the meaning of that. Right? There's some books have big twists at the end that were foreshadowed earlier on. Stuff like that. But don't change it. Don't correct it. Tiltability says, I am a new narrator, started about a month ago. Welcome to the family. And I've gotten hired for some audiobooks, but they are all royalty share. That's okay. Think it's better to wait to do royalty share to you? No. Do royalty share. They all add up at some point. And then once you start getting a following, all those people are going to be like, "Oh, you have all of these other books done. I'm going to go listen to all of it." I mean, just royalty share is never a bad thing. Go do royalty share. I have a story 67 says Lex says correct it. Do not correct it. Do not correct it. Some stories I come across have parts that are lost in translation or transcription. Let the author know. Don't correct it. Let the author know, unless they are paying you to proofread it and correct it. Then you can correct it. Review Exchange Group says public speaking. Angela, when I mentioned using my books in public speaking, getting yourself out there, sharing your books with Rotary clubs, historical societies, libraries, great marketing. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Let's see. We're way over an hour now looking for questions. Let's see. I have a story 67 says, cash cow? Where did my cow go? It's still wandering around the field like a dizzy idiot. Never made it to the barn. Oh my gosh. Christian says, might explain why the Academy Voices is better than ACX on royalty timeshare timelines. Yeah. We offer more royalty share. We have better terms than ACX, for sure. Academy Voices. All right, you guys, it's about that time. Kiki wants to know if she can have the last. No, those are mine. Those are my cherry fritters. I may play well with others, but I don't share. And don't give me scissors, because I will run with them. But that is it for today, y'all. Thanks for joining and for chiming in. I'm sorry that Caesar couldn't come in with these. He had some technical difficulties, but maybe next time. Maybe next time. And again, these live streams are for you guys. So if there's anything that you guys want me to dive more into depth on, please let me know in the comments. You guys have given me some great ideas and some great things, because I talk about this stuff all the time. So if there's something specific, or maybe something that I gloss over that you want to know more about, then please let me know so we can talk about it in these group discussions. But any Hoosiers, I will see you guys next week. For those of you in Launchpad, I'll see you guys on Thursday. I'll see you guys next time. Yeah, like and share, do all the YouTubey things. I appreciate you. I'll see you guys. Bye. Bye. Bye.